Listen to me carefully, because what I'm about to tell you today will destroy your trust in Nigeria's judicial system forever. A judge has just been removed from office. Not for a minor mistake. Not for a misunderstanding. But for sentencing an innocent man to life imprisonment using a law that had been abolished years earlier. Yes, you heard that right. A law that no longer existed. A dosed law. And that man, Nnamdi Kanu, has spent years rotting in prison for a crime he never committed, under a law that should never have been applied. The judge responsible is named James Omotosho, and I'm going to tell you what the system doesn't want you to know. This is not a conspiracy. This is not a theory. This is documented reality, confirmed by Nigeria's National Judicial Council itself. They acknowledged that this judge destroyed a man's life by relying on a statute that did not exist. How is that possible? How does a judge of a superior court not know that the law he is using has been repealed? Incompetence? Criminal negligence? Or something far darker? Share this video right now before it gets censored, because what comes next will expose the full rot of a system designed not to protect you, but to crush you. And wait, because what follows is even more serious. Let me explain how an entire system conspired against an innocent man. Let's speak plainly about Nigeria's judicial system. Judges are supposed to be the guardians of justice. They are supposed to protect ordinary citizens from abuses of power. They are supposed to be impartial, objective, incorruptible. But what happens when judges themselves become the oppressors? What happens when the guardian turns into the wolf? Who do you turn to then? Who do you cry out to for justice when justice itself has betrayed you? The case of Nnamdi Kanu is not an isolated incident. It is a symptom of a terminal disease eating away at Nigeria's institutions from within. Think about it. A man is arrested. A man is tried. A man is sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a cell. Everything appears to follow proper procedure. Everything bears official stamps. Everything carries the signature of a respected judge. But the legal foundation of the entire process was a lie. The law cited in the judgment had been abolished years earlier. Years, not months, not weeks, but years. And no lawyer noticed. No prosecutor challenged it. No judge verified it. How? How is such a level of collective incompetence even possible, unless it wasn't incompetence at all, unless it was deliberate? God sees everything. God sees every injustice. God sees every manipulated file, every bought verdict, every sentence handed down not according to the law but according to political convenience. And God also sees your silence. Our silence. The silence of millions who know the system is rotten but do nothing because we believe it can never happen to us. But you are wrong. If it happened to Nnamdi Kanu, it can happen to you, to your brother, to your son, to anyone who angers the wrong people. Leave a comment right now and tell me, do you trust Nigeria's judicial system? Answer honestly. Because if you still trust it after what I've told you, you are part of the problem. And make no mistake, this injustice has a name and a face. One man is responsible for this monumental wrong. And that man is Judge James Omotosho. James Omotosho. Say that name again. James Omotosho. This man held one of the most powerful positions in Nigeria's judicial system. A judge with decades of experience. A man who supposedly knows the law better than anyone. A man who swore to defend the Constitution. And yet, the same man sentenced Nnamdi Kanu to life imprisonment based on a law that had already been abolished. How does something like this happen? How does a judge at that level commit such a fundamental error? Let me tell you something. In criminal law, the very first rule is to verify that the law you are applying actually exists. This is the most basic requirement. It is like a doctor checking that a patient is alive before performing surgery. It is so elementary that the only explanation for failing to do it is either criminal negligence or malicious intent. And when we look at who the victim is, Nnamdi Kanu, a politically controversial figure, an activist, someone who challenges the government, the pieces begin to fit together in a very dark way. This was not a mistake. It was a judicial execution. It was an attempt to bury a man alive under the weight of a corrupt system. While Nnamdi Kanu spent years locked away, unable to hug his wife, unable to watch his children grow up, unable to breathe free air, Judge James Omotosho continued working in his luxurious office, collecting his salary paid with our tax money. How does he sleep at night? How does he look his own children in the eyes knowing he destroyed another father's life? Does he have a conscience? Does he have a soul? Because if he does, it is very well hidden. God will judge him. He may have escaped human justice for years, but he cannot escape divine justice. And now, finally, the National Judicial Council has acted. He has been dismissed. He has been removed from office. But that is not enough. This man should not only lose his job, he should face criminal charges. He should be prosecuted. He should feel even a fraction of the pain that Nnamdi Kanu has endured. Life imprisonment based on a law that did not exist. Let me repeat that, because it sounds so absurd it is almost impossible to believe. Life imprisonment based on an abolished law. It is like being arrested today for violating a colonial-era law that was repealed 50 years ago. It is insane. It is Kafkaesque. It is a legal nightmare. Subscribe right now if you believe this judge deserves to be in prison. Because if we do not demand full justice, this will happen again. And next time, the victim could be you. Now let me show you the concrete evidence, because this is not my opinion. These are verifiable facts confirmed by the NJC itself. The National Judicial Council is the highest disciplinary authority within Nigeria's judiciary. When they speak with the full weight of the Constitution behind them. And what they uncovered in their investigation is devastating. Judge James Omotosho based the life sentence ruling against Nnamdi Kanu on a specific statute. Up to that point, everything might seem normal. Except for one catastrophic detail. When the NJC reviewed the official legislative records, they discovered that this statute had been abolished years before Omotosho relied on it. It was not amended. It was not temporarily suspended. It was abolished, repealed, eliminated, erased from Nigeria's legal code. There is a fundamental principle in criminal law known in Latin as nullum crimen sine lege. It means there is no crime without a law. You cannot be punished for something that is not explicitly prohibited by a law that is in force at the time of the alleged act. This principle is not a suggestion. It is the foundation of every civilized legal system. It is enshrined in Nigeria's constitution. It is recognized by international courts around the world. And Judge Omotosho violated it completely. The NJC established a clear timeline. The law was abolished in a specific year. The repeal was published in the official government gazette. It was available in public records. Any lawyer with internet access could have verified it. And yet, years after that abolition, Judge Omotosho cited that same law as the basis for stripping a man of his freedom for the rest of his life. Do you understand how serious this is? We are not talking about a procedural technicality. We are not talking about a minor clerical error. We are talking about a total absence of jurisdiction. It is like a traffic court judge deciding to preside over a murder trial. He simply has no authority to do so. The NJC was unequivocal. It concluded that the judge acted outside the law, violated the most basic constitutional guarantees, and demonstrated gross negligence, or something worse. Imagine being the person sitting in that courtroom. Imagine hearing the judge read your sentence, life imprisonment. The rest of your life behind bars. All based on a law that a first-year law student could verify no longer exists. It is like being arrested today for violating Prohibition-era alcohol laws from the 1920s in the United States. It is absurd. It is criminal. It is a violation of everything justice is supposed to mean. Like this right now, if you understand why this is not just a mistake, but a crime against a human being. And this is not just a dry story about laws and technical procedures. This is the story of a flesh and blood man. A man with a family. With dreams. With a life. A man who has spent years suffering because of a criminal error that should never have happened. Nnamdi Kanu is a name many people recognize, but few truly understand who he is beyond the headlines. He is an activist. He is controversial. He is polarizing. But above all, he is a human being. And as a human being, he has rights that no judge has the authority to violate, no matter how politically inconvenient he may be. When Judge Omotosho handed down his sentence, he did not merely write words on paper. He destroyed a life. He shattered a family. He condemned a man to spend years in a prison cell, knowing that the legal foundation of his imprisonment was a lie. Think about that. Think about waking up every day in prison, staring at the same walls, eating the same terrible food, sleeping on the same hard cot, hearing the screams of other inmates, feeling the years pass as your life slowly evaporates. And all that time, knowing deep in your soul that you are there because of an injustice. Knowing that the law used to imprison you did not even exist when you were sentenced. Can you imagine that psychological hell? Nnamdi Kanu has a wife. He has children. He has a mother who has likely cried herself to sleep every night since his arrest. He has siblings. He has friends. He has a community that misses him. And all of them have had to live with the crushing knowledge that their loved one is imprisoned unjustly. Nnamdi's wife has had to raise their children without a father. She has had to explain why daddy is not at home. She has had to stay strong while falling apart inside. His children have grown up without their father's presence, without his guidance, without his hugs, without hearing him say I love you before bedtime. All of that was stolen by a system that decided political convenience mattered more than justice. It is like the story of Job in the Bible, a righteous man tested unjustly, a man who suffers not because of his crimes but because of forces beyond his control. But unlike Job, whose suffering was a divine trial, Nnamdi Kanu's suffering was caused by the corrupt hand of man. And that makes it 1,000 times worse. What if it were your brother? What if it were your father? What if it were you? Because that is the truth no one wants to confront. This can happen to anyone. If the system is willing to destroy Nnamdi Kanu, it is willing to destroy you. There are no exceptions when the law no longer matters. Our brother has endured years of psychological torture. Years of isolation. Years of despair. And while he suffered, the judge responsible remained free. He kept collecting his salary. He kept sleeping in a comfortable bed. He kept living his life as if nothing had happened. God sees his tears. God sees every night Nambi spent staring at the ceiling of his cell, wondering if he would ever see the sun again. God sees the injustice. And God does not forget. But divine justice, though inevitable, takes time. And in the meantime, we need human justice. We need this monstrous error to be corrected. We need Nambi Kanu to be released immediately, because every additional day he spends in prison is another day of torture based on a legal lie. Comment freedom for Nambi right now if you believe he should be released immediately. Because our collective voice is the only weapon we have against a system designed to silence us. But this story does not end in tragedy. Because after years of struggle, pressure, and investigation, something historic finally happened. Something unprecedented occurred in Nigeria. The NJC, confronted with the truth they could no longer hide, made a decision that shook the entire judicial system. The National Judicial Council removed James Omotosho from his position. He was dismissed. Expelled from Nigeria's judiciary. A judge who had spent decades in the system was disgraced and forced out because someone finally had the courage to investigate what many had long suspected. This is not common. Judges in Nigeria, as in many countries, often operate with near total impunity. They can commit serious errors and, at worst, receive a private reprimand. But to completely remove a judge is extraordinary. And the fact that the NJC did so shows that the evidence was so overwhelming they had no other choice. The process was thorough. The NJC formed a disciplinary panel. They reviewed every document in the case. They compared Omotosho's judgment with the official legislative records. They verified the dates on which the law had been abolished. They examined whether there was any opportunity during the trial to correct the error. And the conclusion was unanimous. The judge acted with gross negligence. He violated fundamental constitutional principles. He showed contempt for the rule of law. And therefore, he could not continue to serve as a judge. The truth prevailed. After years of darkness, light finally broke through. This proves that no judge, no matter how powerful, is above the law. It proves that when pressure is strong enough, when evidence is undeniable, even the most corrupt institutions can be forced to act. It is a victory. But it is a bitter one. Because while Omotosho lost his position and his reputation, Nambi Kanu remains in prison. The judge's removal does not erase the stolen years. It does not give back lost time. It does not heal the psychological damage. There is justice, even if it comes late, the saying goes. And it is true. Justice reached Omotosho. But when will it reach Nambi? The NJC did its part. They removed the corrupt judge. But their mandate ends there. They cannot free Nambi. They cannot overturn the sentence. That must come from the appellate courts. And that is where the battle continues. Because now that it has been proven that the sentence was based on a non-existent law, the higher courts have a legal and moral